What's going on, Lacrosse fans? Welcome to the PLL Flash on the Lacrosse Flash podcast network. I'm your host, Ryan Hulsebos, joined by Flash writer Noah Lands, aka PLL Chirps, and Flash editor-in-chief Austin Owens, as we get set to wrap up what has been an incredible 2021 PLL season, with the Chaos ending the Whipsnakes championship winning streak on Sunday at 2 and becoming the first team other than the Whipsnakes to win the PLL championship. And it was the Buffalo Bandits Chaos crew that took over in this one, as they have done here for the most part on this entire championship run. And the MVP, Blaze Reardon, was phenomenal, as we expected. And we'll get into all of that and more as we get going here on today's PLL Flash. But Noah, how are we feeling today? And initial thoughts here coming off this championship and the weekend as the Chaos win their first PLL title.
I would say it went about as well as it possibly could have, not only for the PLL as an entity, but the Chaos, obviously, and just lacrosse fans in general. I mean, coming off of a COVID season, the league bounced back. There were fans in the stands. You had a full season. You didn't have any major hiccups with COVID. You did it right. You were safe. And then it culminates in this awesome weekend in Washington, D.C., where you have a stadium that looked like it was really full of fans. You know, we don't have the official count, but from everything I've heard, it was a fantastic atmosphere. The championship game was incredible, and I think the league itself probably needed a new champion. I know, there's a lot of Whipsnakes fans out there, but I think you were starting to sense that Whipsnakes fatigue. So seeing the Chaos breathe new life into that championship kind of aura, especially coming into next season where, again, it's anybody's game, and now we've shown that the Whipsnakes can be beaten. It was about as well as the weekend could have gone.
Absolutely. It looked packed. Atmosphere looked great. Austin, you were at this title game up in the media booth with some of our other very talented people here at Flash on TV. Like I said, the atmosphere, as Noah said it well as well. It looked incredible. What was that environment like there at the game, on the field, kind of at that field level?
It was electric, to say the least. I echo what Noah said. The PLL put on one hell of an event. I was able to get in on Friday. I was lucky enough to go to the PLL Awards. I was able to do the game. I had a walk-around day. That's why I kind of look like a lobster on here right now. It is what it is, man. We keep rolling. The content train stops for nobody. So it was fantastic. The crowd was electric. Dan was out there in the front row doing his thing with his free dance shirt on. He looked fantastic. And it was a hell of a time. I mean, like, real quick, to the people that I met, like, shout out to you guys. You know who you are. I can't list you off right now because there was a lot of you. A lot of the people I've met on Lacrosse Twitter. It was a lot of fun. And then, Ty and Mackie were out there too. We had Ty and I had a lot of fun. Mackie was just in for the game, but I can't complain. They put on a hell of a show, and congratulations to the Chaos.
We were talking before we started, the three of us, and me and Noah kind of just sitting here, very jealous at the weekend, the Sunday that Austin seemed to have had. A lot of awesome people that it seemed that he met. Yeah. Me and Noah sitting here, very, very jealous, as I imagine everybody here watching, listening at home. But I appreciate both of you joining me, and for everyone watching, thank you for joining us. As for the final time this season, we look to recap the weekend's games, this one being the biggest weekend of them all, with the biggest game in Championship Sunday, as the Chaos take down the Whipsnakes by a final score of 14-9. And Austin, the first story to really come out of this game, besides the Blaze Reardon MVP storyline, he would also win the MVP, of this game as well. And we'll get to that in a moment. But it was the play of this Canadian offense, this Buffalo Bandits offense, to be more specific, that combined for 10 goals as compared to the Whipsnakes' 9 in this game, as the Whipsnakes' defense was largely unable to slow them down, whether it was Josh Byrne or Chris Cloutier, each of whom finished with 2 goals and 2 assists. Dane Smith, who found his name listed as a second-team All-Pro on Saturday, he scored 2 goals as well, also dished out 4 assists. And as for Chase Frazier, he finished as the game's leading goal scorer with 4 goals. Ryan Smith, the rookie. Westberg would also tally a goal. The rookie Mac O'Keefe scored twice. An absolute missile was that second goal of the afternoon. But Austin, the Whipsnakes largely unable to slow down this Chaos offensive attack. As I said, this Canadian offensive attack, as 5 first-quarter goals really set the tone, and then the Chaos just able to keep the pedal down to close things out here.
Yeah, I mean, all the Canadians look great, and I mean, I don't want to big him up too much because I know I've been doing it since I talked to him. I think it was last week, but we can't talk enough about how fantastic Dane Smith was during this entire run through the playoffs. That's 18 points in 3 games he had when it was most important to his team for him to come through. 3 6-point outings when your team needed you the most. He became a star in the last, a couple weeks in between, but the last 3 weeks. Yeah, the last month and a bit, he's become an absolute star. And he's rewarded with a second team All-Pro. This offense, it's Kyle Jackson, it's Westberg, it's Chris Cloutier, Josh Byrne. When Josh Byrne is, I think, tied, it was 3 guys with 4 points. It was Cloutier, it was Fraser, and it was Josh Byrne. If you're spreading your offense out that well, you're going to have a good day regardless of who you're playing. And if you do it against the Whip Snakes, we'll talk about Blaze, but this offense was absolutely fantastic. I can't say enough about Chase Fraser. He was amazing. I really, really enjoyed them using Chris Cloutier to engage from X. I thought it was a really good move by Towers. All around, this team, we wrote them off, I think it's safe to say, at a certain point, and they proved us wrong again, and they took it a step further than they did last year. So kudos to them. I absolutely love watching Chaos yesterday afternoon. It was fucking incredible.
I think out of the All-Star break, we were looking at the bottom of the table, and it was kind of the Cannons, the Chaos, the Chrome. It was like which team of those 3 were going to be eliminated. Obviously, the Chrome in that first game, that Friday night game there of Week 7, looked really bad. I believe it was against the Cannons, and then we all kind of were like, all right, so the Chrome might be that team that we might see be eliminated here from the playoffs. The Chaos then was kind of in that conversation, and we've seen from this Chaos team, they've been phenomenal since that point. Really, before that point as well, they've been on a pretty strong here, putting together wins out of their last couple games. And this Chaos offense, or I should say powered by this offense and by this defense, as you said, led by Blaze Reardon, the MVP. They're able to clinch their first PLL championship in franchise history. And as for Blaze, he finishes the game with 15 saves, good for 63% save percentage. And as the MVP of the game, he wraps up the weekend with an MVP, a goalie of the year, a championship trophy, and as well a championship MVP. And he was helped out by this Chaos defense that has stepped up in pretty immeasurable ways the past couple weekends, holding their opposing offenses to under 10 goals in each of these 3 playoff games. The Whip Snakes, they become just the most recent victim as Zed Williams, Matt Rambo. They were limited on the score sheet. They combined for just 3 assists on 9 total shots. 8 of them came from Zed and Noah. Really just unable to get things going offensively was the Whip Snakes, and that translates back to the play of Max Adler at the faceoff X, as he was phenomenal in limiting the damage and practically erasing the damage that we've seen be inflicted by Joe Nardella before. We've seen it done by Nardella to this Chaos team before on the biggest of stages. Adler does a phenomenal job here, not allowing that to happen again. And come the fourth quarter, it was really Adler who was able to take over and really dictate that battle at the stripe.
Yeah, I mean, I think there were 3 guys, arguably, that could have taken home that MVP trophy for the game. Adler being one, Blaze being one, and then you could give the toss-up to Dane or Chase Fraser on offense as well. I mean, the Chaos they needed to do 2 things to win this game, and they did both of them. Number 1, they needed to limit either Zed or Matt. They did both, right? So right there, you're ahead. And the next thing was they made Joe Nardella, who has been the face of, being a face-off athlete in this game the last 2 years, one of the biggest keys to the Whip Snake success in these playoff runs. And they didn't make him a non-factor, but they limited him enough to where they can do what they needed to do and control the pace of the game in a way that they needed to. And so by doing both of those things and then sharing the ball on offense like we've been waiting for an entire season, I mean, the Chaos offense that we all thought of when we saw this on paper, 6 months ago, that's what came out of this championship game. And it took a while to get there, but we finally saw the ball movement, the crazy stick skills, and the control from this offense. And I think a lot of that came from confidence, knowing that their defense, they had their backs. They could kind of play in a way that they needed to play to feel comfortable, knowing that if they lose a possession here, lose a possession there, it's not going to be that big a deal because I got Rowlett covering. I've got Jared Newman playing like the player that he's supposed to be. Early in the season, we gave him a little bit of, crap about not being able to cover as well as we thought he had the last, couple seasons. He locked down when it came time to put up. So between those two and then Blaze making 16 saves in a championship game, I mean, that's what you pay your MVP to do. When you're in that position, you need those guys to step up, and every single one of them did, and that's what resulted in the championship for these guys. I mean, everybody that needed to play a part in this game did, and it's crazy that you needed all those pieces to work together to dethrone these whip snakes. I mean, they're that good that you needed everything to go right. You needed every part of this system to work, and ultimately it did. And I got to give credit to Andy and the Chaos. They did a fantastic job. But the whip snakes had an incredible run as well, and I have no doubt that they'll probably be back next year in one of the same positions.
Before this game, Andy Towers was preaching just we have to play our four best quarters of lacrosse of the season. That's what he was preaching all week long, and kind of like the weekend, the 2 weeks leading up to this game. It seemed like they were able to do that, as we're saying. Just really everything came together. Whether it was the defense slowing down Zed Williams and Matt Rambo, the offense obviously was heated up all day. Scored 8 first half goals, was able to follow that up with another 6 there in the second half, able to slow the Whip Snakes down as well, and able to get this first title. And Austin, you mentioned it there before, Blaze Reardon, a phenomenal game for the MVP, the goalie of the year now, champion and MVP of the championship game now as well.
Yeah, he's fantastic. He making timely saves when his team needed it the most. I think the biggest thing, I'll touch on the face-off thing real quick. From watching from the press box, Joe Nardello went 4-0 to start the game. And it's sort of like, oh no. Like the Whips are controlling possession.
Same old. We're thinking it's going to be the same old story.
Jay Carlson scores a between the legs goal like a minute and a half in, and we're like, oh God, here we go.
Early power play.
Yeah. Like they look great. Max Adler turned it around, had a fantastic game. Blaze, unbelievable. When they needed a save, he made a save. His outlets were crisp. He just made all the right decisions. He's absolutely the MVP. After the game, I remember Blaze, they asked him, I forget what the question is, but they asked Blaze, what does it feel like to win MVP in the championship? And he said, I only won one award this weekend, and it's the championship. The other ones don't matter. And that's exactly what this entire team's mindset is. Like, as every team is, individual accolades are nice, but it doesn't matter unless you can bring it home, and they did. And I think one thing I'll say as well, we ended up running into Andy Towers after the game, and this is the only thing I'll talk about when it comes to after the game stuff. He was talking to me about just, he had some coach speak for me. And he was basically just saying to what you were saying, Ryan and Noah, the Whip Snakes are still the gold standard of this league, is what Andy said. He wasn't disillusioned of saying this team, now that we are the champions, we are the gold standard of this league. No, they beat the Whips in one game, and they're very aware of that they've still lost to them more time than they've won over the last 3 years. So they need to come out next year and be even better. So I think that's really nice to see from Andy and Chaos that, you got this win, but the job's not done yet because they know the Whips are going to be back next year. But to answer your question, Blaze is unbelievable. He's the best goalie in the world, and we've known that for 3 years now. But he absolutely deserves that MVP, and he proved why he's the MVP in this game.
Everybody says it, like around sports, especially the conversations around guys like Bill Belichick and Nick Saban. It's so hard to just get there, just initially to get there. It's even harder to just repeat it and just continue to repeat it. Obviously, in 2 back-to-back seasons, we saw from the Whip Snakes, we saw this season from Jim Stagnita and his team. Obviously, the Chaos able to get that win. We'll see if they can follow that up going forward. But yeah, the Chaos, they snap a 4-game losing skid to the Whip Snakes, and they improve that all-time head-to-head record against the Whips to 2-5 all time. So still, as Austin said there before, looking at the Whip Snakes as that gold standard, as they're still trying to elevate to that level here as a franchise, as a team. And again, the numbers in this game, they pointed to the Whip Snakes to repeat, but the Chaos, they break through. They break that narrative, winning their first PLL title after coming into these playoffs, getting just over 3% of that fan vote. We can also officially confirm a broken trophy, although we are unsure who is exactly responsible, but I can't imagine the Chaos really care. They can party with it however they want to, as they are the 2021 PLL champs, and will have a new defending champion come the start of next season.
Shout out to the Back of the Bird Boys for breaking that.
Absolutely. Shout out to the Back of the Bird Boys for breaking that. We also had Dan was throwing some breaking news out, even though that's what he was. It was conflicting reports there on who it was that broke that trophy. But
I can confirm to you, not the trophy, but I can confirm to you that the other news, Dan was in the trenches for all of it. So
yes, Dan was fully in the trenches for all of it.
Free
It
Dan
is-
shirt and all.
Free Dan shirt and all. Before we move on, just to wrap up our coverage of this championship game, Austin, final thoughts on what was a very exciting game to cap off what was a very exciting season.
The Chaos are an incredible team, and I think, sorry about that, my phone's going off. Sorry, I got a little out of there for a sec. They're just a team that, like, I don't want to harp too much on the whole Canadian thing, but I am, the Canadian here. So get Canadians, get box players. Americans play box. This is what happens. Chaos look absolutely fantastic, and it's not, oh, they play box, so they're just better than you. No, it's Andy Towers and his staff also schemed them up perfectly to fit their play style, and that's why they won. The Whips, it wasn't their day, but obviously they gave due credit to Chaos for just coming out and putting it on them. The Chaos after the first quarter had one fewer goal than they did in last year's championship. They were buzzing all game long. So they're going to be a fun team to watch next year. They don't even have Curtis Dixon right now. They don't even have Challen Rogers. They barely use Tanner Cook. This team's going to be a wagon next year, and they're going to have more guys through the college draft. Who knows? If something goes their way, they could end up with Jared Bernhardt next year.
Very dangerous thinking about what the Chaos could look like next year and the years after that. Noah, final thoughts, though, here before we move on, looking at some awards here for the league.
Yeah, I mean, just piggybacking on what he said about the box background and everything like that. I mean, there were several instances in that game where you saw a ground ball happen, and it was a 50-50 scrum between 5 or 6 guys. And I had no doubt that a Canadian was going to come up with that ball and it was going to end up in the back of the net. I mean, just things like that, playing like that, where you have this experience in tight quarters, the quick, snappy moves.
The Kyle Jackson ground ball in the fourth.
Yes.
I mean that was not
play.
only a big ground ball, that was a big momentum shifter too. So things like that. I mean, it's not to say. I mean, I know the whole box field argument. It's pitches in the air. It doesn't matter to me. Yeah. But you've got to understand that when it comes to lacrosse, the more you have your stick in your hands, if that's in the summer, and you're on the field, if that's in the winter, you're in the box, the more you're doing that, the better you're going to be. And these guys are proving that because they played college field ball. They've played junior A. They've played box their entire lives. They play in the NLL in the wintertime. So the more you can have your stick in your hands, like these guys have, the better you're going to be.
I'm personally glad that we get to see a new champion. It's always good, I think, when we get new teams in the mix. Dynasties, they're great and all, but we talk so much, I think, about the parity in the league. It's definitely there as each weekend, each matchup, it's like a flip of a coin practically, but it's always good to get a new winner in there. It now gives fans, as Noah was saying before, of the other 6 teams, it kind of gives them hope that the Whipsnake, they won't just win every year forever. Someone has finally stopped them, and it is the Chaos Lacrosse Club that is the one to do it. We'll definitely be revisiting this game and revisiting these conversations as we get into this offseason. But moving on, we had award winners announced as ahead of Sunday's championship game. The PLL hosted its end-of-season awards ceremony where they awarded their annual end-of-season awards. You can find all the results on the league's Twitter or Instagram, but I'll run through them real quickly here in case anybody missed it. We'll have some quick reactions all around as well. But the Rookie of the Year, as expected, was Jeff Teat, the league leader in points per game. He was also up for Attackman of the Year and MVP, but he was not awarded either, as the Attackman of the Year was awarded to the Archers Grant Ament, who led the league in points and assists. The Defensive Player of the Year, as we all, for the most part, kind of predicted last week, it was me, Austin, and Jordan. We all had Graham Hossick of the Archers as the entry draft's second overall pick becomes the third winner of the award. As for the LSM of the Year, completely different story. The Whipsnakes' Michael Earhart wins it for a third straight season. And then other than Teat, there were also a few other rookies that were finalists for awards. T.D. Erlin was up for the Face-Off Athlete of the Year. However, Trevor Baptiste would win it for the second time in his career. And then the Atlas's Danny Logan was awarded the Hard Hat Award, the award given to the league's top short stick defensive midfielder representing the 2021 rookie class, as the only player to win a positional award this season was Danny Logan. The Chromes, Ryan Tarafanko, and the Archers, Latrell Harris, were also up for this defensive midfielder award. Latrell Harris, not exactly a rookie, but kind of in terms of his field lacrosse career, a rookie in our eyes. And then to finish up this position awards, Zach Currier wins the Midfielder of the Year, and Blaze Reardon repeats for the third time as goalie of the year. And he is also your 2021 MVP, the first goalie to win the award in professional field lacrosse since Greg Catrano back in 2002. And Noah, a lot of these awards were fairly predictable going in, but there were definitely a few surprises. What was the biggest one that stuck out in your eyes?
Yeah, I mean, you knew Jeff T was going to win one of the 3 awards that he was nominated for, and I guess you could have probably made an argument for MVP, but it was definitely time for Blaze to get that MVP under his belt as a goalie. I saw it coming. There were the thing about these awards is there's so many good players that you could have given it to one of 3 guys that were nominated, and I would have said, okay, you got an argument for that. Like that's a fine decision. So I wouldn't say that there were any that were too surprising for me. It's just the fact that of all of these awards, I don't see a single one that was given out where it was like that guy, there's no other question, he was the guy. I mean, you've got a player 2, 3 deep at some positions that, defender of the year, obviously that was probably going to be Graham Hossack, but Dunn had another great year. Rowlett, after if you would have voted after the championship game, maybe could have made that conversation as well. I mean, you've got Granament playing attack against, a Lyle Thompson, who's also there and had a great season. Obviously, the Cannons being a little bit underwhelming probably affected that some too. But, these awards, the talent pool that we have right now, it's kind of a crapshoot, and I really don't think you can go wrong. It's easy voting, so I'm not too mad about any of it.
There definitely were a few names where it's kind of like you could like for really all these positions, you could make a case really for any of these players. I mean, you look at even like an MVP conversation, Miles Jones, I think he had a very strong case to win the midfielder of the year. I think he had a strong case to at least be an MVP finalist, possibly an MVP, in that conversation of the top guys. He led all midfielders in points and assists, both by a pretty wide margin. So that conversation definitely one that we have had. Obviously, there's guys that we could make a case for to win each of these awards. You mentioned Jeff T. He had a case for both Attackman of the Year and MVP. I think the league got it right, though. They awarded Amen Attackman of the Year, Blaze the MVP, and you could really say that both of those races were fairly wide open. As for the rest of our awards, Eric Law, he's the winner of the Sportsmanship Award. Jack Kelly of the Teammate Award. The now retired Kyle Harrison wins the Leadership Award, and Lyle Thompson is the recipient of the Wells Crowther Humanitarian of the Year. And Austin, myself, you, and Jordan officially go 3 for 4, I believe, in our predictions from last Tuesday. On those awards specifically, we didn't do all that bad collectively when it came to all of them as well. But I was particularly surprised by the Coach of the Year, as Water Dogs head coach Andy Copeland is the recipient of the award over Atlas head coach Ben Rubier after Copeland took his team from a 1-3 group play, an early exit in the 2020 playoffs. That led to the number 2 overall pick in the college draft. And after a strong offseason of trades, draft selections, and player signings, the Water Dogs went on to rip off 4 straight wins to close out the 2021 regular season. And they finished as the number 1 team and then were awarded that bye week. Through to the semifinals, they came just a game shy of the championship game. But a phenomenal season from Coach Copeland, his staff, his team. But Austin, it's a season that this War Dogs team will definitely be able to build on going into 2022 and beyond.
Yeah, I think there's a case to be made for either of Copeland or Ben Rubier winning that award, and I wouldn't be upset with either. It's what you guys were saying about the positional awards. Those 2 guys took their teams from their respective scenarios last year and turned them into, I don't want to say juggernauts, but, they are units. They are fantastic in this league right now. I got to meet Andy Copeland. He was awesome. He's obviously a guy that's been on GLE, and, he was a fantastic individual in all class. I love talking to him. You feel smarter being around guys like him, and that's an amazing feeling. I'm not a smart man, so that's all credit to him. But yeah, I just think, the Water Dogs are set up for such success this year. It's going to be in the Atlas as well, or next year, excuse me, that I love what both of them have done. The Atlas obviously have, I think, a top 3 pick. It'll be probably determined in the next couple of weeks where they will be picking, but they're set up for another huge guy to come into that team. The Water Dogs are going to have, a lower pick in these drafts, but Andy Copeland's proved that, he's either willing to move his assets to get guys that can come in now, or he's able to find guys in the talent pool. He got Ben Randall late, and he turned into a very good close defender for them. Liam Burns went in the top 10, but still came out and had a huge performance. Like, he has an eye for getting those guys that can be impact players in his system. So I really like what Coach Copeland has done this year. Obviously, I think when you look at the Ryan Brown trades and the Dylan Ward trade, I think that's what kind of wins him the award, because those are two impact players that showed out and helped this team secure the 1 seed and lock it down. And I have no problem with him winning this award. As for next year, I don't know, man. Like, I'd like to give you a bold prediction, but it's what I love about the PLL is you don't know what's going to happen. And it'll be fun to watch because, the offseason is going to come fast and furious now. It's not going to be, 4 months down the road. We're going to get some deals going on in the next couple of weeks, I'd imagine, after, the league kind of catches its breath and gets back from DC.
We will definitely see kind of what happens
as any expansion, though, right?
Yeah, so that's
that's
one thing.
That.
That's one thing is during the pre championship availability, Mike Rabel was doing his sort of business overview. He was asked about expansion, and he basically said that they're happy with, I forget the sort of the whole gist of the quote, but they were happy with where they were at with 8 teams. And essentially they didn't want to make it more teams in order to stretch out the player pool because they were happy with how the parity in the competition is now. I know a lot of people online were saying like, oh, but the Whip Snakes and Chaos playing for the second straight year and the Whip Snakes are in the That's because their coaches are really good at maintaining assets. That's not because they're the best 2 teams. The Whip Snakes are probably the best team in the league. That's fair. The Chaos are in this game. They finished under 500 this year, and they made the championship game because they turned it on at the right time. Like, it's what I've said in this thing. Anybody can beat anybody, and if you don't believe that, then I don't know what fucking game you've been watching the last 4 months.
And barring injuries, the Chrome could have been there too. I mean, you lose Jordan Wolf, Randy Stotts, you lose a little bit of Goddad, whatever, But I mean,
his scoring tough though.
Those 2 guys could have made a big enough difference to elevate them 1 or 2 games, which was the difference between the bottom spot and the playoff spot. And you get in the playoffs and you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, those guys, that's a team that we all thought going into the season. They've got all the personality. They've got, the mindset that they could make a run. And it just seemed like they just kept getting ravaged every step of the way by injuries. So, yeah, I like what you said, the parity and everything right now. I think they need to keep it for just a little bit, give it another year or 2, let things kind of settle, and then we'll see where we go from there.
Like if I'd like to see another team, I know we're getting off track here, so I apologize, Ryan, but like,
all good.
I agree with what Mike Rabel said. Like, the league is in a really good spot right now where it doesn't seem like teams are overpowered, but it seems like they have enough. Like, the weapons are fun to watch. The Whip Snakes that we just proved can lose in a 1-game playoff. They're not, they don't have a kryptonite per se, but the league doesn't need to add expansion teams just for the sake of it if they feel it's going to water down their player pool, because there's nobody else coming. The guys that are in the player pool right now are who you're getting, and the only guys that are improving that are the college guys.
Mm-hmm. Definitely something that we will watch as we get into this offseason. Something that I was going to say before you guys kind of got into that. We've seen it in the past couple of years, obviously players signing between leagues, because there was the MLL, there was the PLL. We would kind of hear some news of, oh, this guy signed an X year contract with the PLL to remain, as a player of the PLL. Now we don't have that anymore because we only have the 1 league. So will guys start signing with teams? Definitely something that we will watch here going into this offseason. But a big congratulations to Coach Copeland and all of our other 2021 award recipients and finalists for phenomenal seasons all around. We also can congratulate our first and second team All-Pros, which were announced on Saturday following Friday night's award ceremony. For the most part, it was award winners and finalists making up the first team, other finalists and runner-ups then making up the second team. A few non-award finalists snuck in to get a second team All-Pro spot as well. Everything adds up to me, though, Noah. I don't think I'm changing much, except for I think you give the nod to a guy like Costabile or Schreiber over a Paul Rabel in the midfield. But, Rabel had a great season here for his final one, so definitely we don't want to knock it there too much. But really, other than that, I'm happy with how they laid out both of these All-Pro teams.
Yeah, I think the voting was I have nothing to complain about there. I think Rabel, when you saw that he was midfielder of the year, you started to get that idea that maybe this was kind of his, curtain call. And I think we were all a little bit taken off guard by that. I thought he would probably do a full year kind of retirement tour. But honestly, I'm kind of glad that he didn't, because I think that's going to be what's best for the league, and I think that's kind of what he's invested in at this point. He wants to, to ride this momentum that he sees, and I think at this point, when he and Mike talked, he's going to be better suited in the front office right now than he would on the field, and for that reason alone, I trust both him and Mike with this league very much because, it's not an easy decision to decide that you're going to be done with a career that's been as long and as illustrious as he had, and the kind of the suddenness that it was. It really kind of shows how invested he is in making sure that this is a long-term thing, and I appreciate that. I really do. I know that giving up something like that I'm sure he holds dear is a difficult decision, but I'm excited to see what it looks like now. We get a full-time Rabel duo in the front office. There's no amount of Today shows and Barstool podcasts that can be done now. He's just going to be everywhere.
Yeah,
I was seeing.
Sorry to cut you off.
Good.
I also just real quick, I really respect Paul for doing it the way he did it, because I think if he had done that, it would take done the whole retirement tour thing. It would have taken a lot of thunder away from, Kyle Harrison and the impact that he had and his retirement had when it was announced, and also Joel White and John Galloway. I think it's good that he waited and just said, hey guys, this is it. After the season's done, I'll announce it. That's it. I haven't tweeted this out yet, but during that same Mike Rabel press conference, I asked him about Paul and sort of his thoughts on the whole thing. I don't know if he made a speech during the ceremony, but he said he didn't really know Paul's impact on the game until he really saw him in the PLL, because they were on two separate sides of the states. He was out west, Mike, and Paul was playing for the Lizards. And Mike just basically said at the end, Paul was basically having to get his knees drained before every game, because that's he wanted to play, but his body was telling him that he couldn't anymore. And that's what Paul said during his announcement. So it's good of him. I kind of enjoy when players know when it's their time, with their body, that they can step away before, they try and push it those extra couple of years and take a decline in performance. And I'm not sure that's what Paul would have done. I think he would have kept, putting up pretty good performances. But if your body's not right and you have to go through that much to keep going every year, then it's time. And he's going to make an impact on the game past what he's done on the field these last 14 years, I think.
Everybody wants to play as long as they can, but as Paul kind of has been saying, it's great to make the decision of, I'm ready to hang it up before obviously kind of having to get pulled off the field. So a decision that he made. I don't know if you guys got a chance yet. We're recording this Monday night here. We have this up for Tuesday, right after the championship game. But Inside Lacrosse, they had an interview with Paul Rabel. I recommend everybody listen to it if you didn't get a chance. It was a great interview. He offered a lot of great insight on just kind of what went into that decision for him to retire, kind of a season-long thing. But you get traded to a new team, an expansion team. You don't want to take, obviously, too much away from that, especially an expansion team that's fighting for a playoff spot come, after that All-Star break. So he offered a lot of great insight. Make sure to go check that out if you haven't. But before we wrap this up, guys, we got obviously the Chaos 2021 champs. What are we thinking for this 2022 championship outlook? Noah, who do you think here, just to start us off, who do you think, I should say, who do we see in this 2022 championship prediction, and then who wins?
I think we finally see a new duo at the championships. I think a healthy Chrome with a little bit of help from a college draft to shore up some of those positions. If they stay healthy and they get some momentum, I want to see the Chrome there. I think they need, as a, I guess you call it franchise, as a team, they need that type of boost. I mean, we've had 3 seasons now, and it's been kind of lackluster, all 3. They need to have that one season where they kind of get back on the horse. So I want to see the Chrome there. And then after that, I think you see the Redwoods back. I think the Redwoods, having TD get injured late in the season, was a real, miss. I think they're going to fill the Kyle Harrison vacancy with a really good player. I trust Nat St. Laurent in this draft and in the offseason. They made the Rob Pennell move that I don't think enough people have talked about. Was probably one of the most, efficient moves of all season. I mean, he really transformed that attack line for the Redwoods to be a dominant force. And so I think with a full off season, you're going to see a Redwoods Chrome 2022. At least that's what I hope to see. I think that'd be a lot of fun. And then obviously the Redwoods finally, after 4 years of trying hard, pull one out. And after that, it's a crapshoot. I mean, we're probably adding new teams. We're going to have, who knows what's going to happen.
The Redwoods, obviously, with a healthy TD Erlin, seemed unstoppable, I would say, at times this season. The Chrome, they'll get JT Gallas-Harris, hopefully a healthy JT Gallas-Harris back. They'll have the first overall pick. Hopefully Jordan Wolf comes back. Hopefully a healthy Jesse Bernhardt. So a lot of pieces there that could go right for the Chrome. Austin, who's playing in this 2022 championship and who wins?
Oh, I just ran into Andy Towers, like I said, and I think he might have caved my chest in. So I'm not going to get on that man's bad side. So I won't predict who's going to be in the title game, but I think this is the year where one of the Archers or Redwoods finally breaks through. That being said, the Whips are still there. Chaos is still there. Like Noah said, Chrome's still going to be there. Atlas, Water Dogs are, again, the two best teams in the league this year. And, would I be surprised if the Cannons just loaded up next year and went for it? No. Every team is very good. I say the same cliche things every single week, and I'm very sorry about it. But the talent pool is so good in this league. And I think, having said that,
spoiled.
We are spoiled. We are in the candy store right now watching these teams play. It's fantastic. And the one thing I'll say is with the Redwoods and Archers, no expansion helps them because they would have lost somebody that's really talented. Off the top of my head, you're talking about maybe leaving a Trey LeClaire unprotected, depending on how things go. You're maybe losing, a Jared Connors would probably be a guy that you'd lose. It's just tough. No expansion really helps those teams because they can just keep loading up on talent. So I think with that extra talent, I would really like to see one of those teams go through because I really like them. They've been really, the Redwoods have run into the Whip Snakes every step of the way, and the Archers just seem to not be able to take that next steps, and I think they'll be able to do it this coming summer. But we'll have to wait for the offseason, man. I couldn't tell you what's going to happen. If it's anything like this past offseason, it's going to be, oh my God, it's going to be wild.
Every team right now is hungry. Every team, after they see the chaos, finally knock off the Whip Snakes. Every team, I think, coming into this 2022 season is hungry. I'm excited for it. I know you guys are as well. So definitely excited to get to that. I'm going to have you lined it up pretty nicely for me. I think the Archers, and I think we see the Redwoods come next season's championship. I think it's finally the Archers' year. I think they're just too talented, especially as you're saying, no expansion. I think the Archers come in again as one of the better teams on paper, and I think they perform as one of the better teams as well. The Redwoods, with a healthy TD Erlin, as Noah was saying before, I think we see a little bit of a deeper playoff run. Obviously, that would have meant beating the Whip Snakes there in the quarterfinals, but I think a healthy TD Erlin would have changed the script. But Noah, Austin, I want to thank you both for joining me today as we close another chapter here in the PLL as the 2021 season, the third season in the league's history, comes to a finish. And for everyone watching, for everyone that's been watching and listening all season long, for reading all season long, we appreciate your support, and we hope that you've enjoyed the content that we as a team collectively have put out and put together here throughout this season, whether that was across our social platforms or on the Lacrosse Flash website. We appreciate you following along, trying to help us grow the game and help grow the media coverage around the game and the league. And there's absolutely more to come as we approach the NLO season, which begins in December, and we'll continue to follow along all this news that does come out of the PLO as both Mike Rabel and Paul Rabel have hinted at a busy offseason, possibly no expansion, but they have hinted at a very busy offseason ahead here in the ahead of, I should say, the 2022 regular season. But that's going to do it for today's show. We will be back sometime next week with a wrap-up episode of Goal Line Extended. Possibly some big guests as well will be joining us as we continue to put a stamp here on the 2021 season. But I hope you all have a great week, a great weekend as well, and we will talk to you next week. Cheers.